It's a steaming hot, humid August afternoon in Ohio, and I'm standing in the air conditioning, and you know what? I'm gonna have a little snack. I've got a really great keto snack lined up for you here. Check it out. Here I've got these beautiful, crisp, chocolate-coated, dark chocolate cookies. And they're lovely and crisp. I'll show you. And that little snap, really nice. And, lovely. Have just a little crunch. And of course, that lovely chocolatey finish. Goes great with a cold brew. All right, I don't mean to be too coy. I'll put the link on the screen for you, but it's great, trust me. Anyway, I looked at a lot of cookie recipes before I came up with this. Actually, I started out trying to make keto ice cream bars, which, as it turned out, really have way too many calories and are too complicated to make to be satisfying. And I really thought this was kind of a better, lighter snack, while at the same time still being low carb and high fat. Check out these macros. Per cookie, it comes down to 83 calories, only 1.5 grams of net carbs, 2.25 grams of protein, and 8 nice grams of fat. The recipe is really fairly simple. If you've made cookies before, this won't be a big challenge for you. These are butter-based and just delicious. They contain an ingredient called black cocoa, which I discovered. It's common to a lot of keto Oreo recipes. You know what's funny? When you look for Oreo recipes on Google, what you come up with for high-carb recipes are recipes made with Oreo cookies that you buy out of the store. I don't think people who eat high-carb foods ever need to make their own Oreos. But anyway, so I discovered this black cocoa substance that I've included in this recipe here, and I think it makes an elegant dessert. And they have this lovely, dark, almost smoky kind of flavor, little salty edge to them too. And then of course, there's that great 100% sugar-free chocolate coating. Really great, and you won't believe how easy it is. Let's move into the kitchen. As in the case of many cookie recipes, we're going to start by mixing together our dry ingredients. Here I've got 1 1/3 cups, that's 150 grams or so of unblanched almond flour. Of course you could use blanched if you like. It really isn't going to matter. The color of the cookies come out dark because of the cocoa powders. Next, we're going to add in 50 grams, that's 8 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Just regular old cocoa powder. I want to get all of it out of there. And to darken it, I'm going to use 2 tablespoons, that's 15 grams of black cocoa powder. If you don't have this, just use 2 more tablespoons of cocoa powder. It's going to give us a really interesting color and a really dark taste that's just lovely. Here, 1 teaspoon of salt. You can add in a little less if you're sensitive to salt. And a ½ teaspoon of xanthan gum, as well as a ½ teaspoon of baking soda, and a ¼ teaspoon of instant coffee. This is going to give us a really rich flavor. Get all that out of there. Kind of humid today, so things are sticking in the bottom of the cups. And we're just going to mix these together thoroughly. Make sure there aren't any lumps. And set it aside while we do the next step. Here in the bowl of my stand mixer, I've got 1/3 cup of butter. That's 5 1/3 tablespoons, or 80 grams of butter. And to it, I'm going to add a ½ cup of confectioner's erythritol. That's powdered erythritol. You could use up to 3/4 of a cup. That's about 100 grams. What I put in is about 75 grams or so. And I'm just going to hook it up to the mixer. And we're going to cream these together. Hook it up to the mixer, and using the paddle tool, you could also do this with a hand mixer, of course. You can mix this by hand if you want with a whisk, really get a little bit of a workout, but it can be done, trust me. Anyway, here I'm going to beat these. First I'm just going to stir them together, and we're going to cream the butter and the sweetener together for about a minute or two until they're completely combined and the butter is a lighter color. Once the mixture is nice and fluffy like this, scrape it down one more time and make sure you keep all of it in the bowl. Don't want to leave anything on the bottom there. And to this, I'm going to add 1 large egg. And I've cracked it in this little dish so I don't get any eggshell in my recipe. Let that go for a little bit and combine the egg with that. This is going to make kind of a rough mixture. It's going to look like it's broken, sort of not completely smooth. That's okay. Here what we want is for this to be more or less combined. That's good right there. Next, I'll add in the dry ingredients, about 1/3 at a time. Just blend until they're nicely combined. Stop. Add in a little more. Stir it in gently. And here I like to stop, give it a quick scrape along the bottom. You know me. This just makes it more likely that everything is really well combined and there's not going to be any part of it that has not been thoroughly blended. Now we'll add in the rest of our dry ingredients. And this really makes it such a beautiful dark colored dough, and it smells fantastic. Now we're going to give it a whirl. We don't really have to worry about overbeating it because there's no gluten. As always, give it a scrape. You want to do that 1 or 2 times before you finish up. Give it a real whirl there. And there we go. Next, I'm going to get this out of the bowl and into some saran wrap. Now, as you can see here, I've got a nice big sheet of plastic wrap, and we're just going to place our cookie dough right in the center of it, right there. And I'm going to make sure I scrape every little bit out of the bowl, of course. There we go. Relatively clean, right? Okay. Now, this dough is very sticky, very messy. You get it all over your hands. It's all right. It won't hurt you. It's delicious. Cut off my saran there. And I'm just going to sort of push this into kind of a disc shape, like this. Not really going to matter if it's even or anything, but I want it nice and flat, not too thick. Because next, what we're going to do is put this in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 hours, or even overnight. It's the next morning, and it's time to roll out our dough. But before we do, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 175 Celsius. Here I've got our dough wrapped up. Isn't it beautiful? I just love the color of it. I'm going to unwrap it and cut it in half. I'm only going to roll out half of it at a time because that's all that'll fit on the parchment paper that we're going to roll it out in. I'll show you that in a minute. The other half we're going to just put back in the refrigerator. Now, why, you might well ask, are we going to roll this out between sheets of parchment paper? Well, one reason is that I don't want to add any more flour to it. This is already just a very nice dough the way it is. And if we roll it out on the board, it's too sticky to just roll out without adding anything to it. This way we won't have to do that. Now, get your rolling pin out. I'm going to roll this fairly thin. I'm going to go for about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit less. You want to make these nice and thin, and just take your time. Okay, now here's what we're looking for. We want the dough to be the same thickness all over, so just run your palm over it and feel for that, and correct any areas where it's a little too thick. And then, of course, you can always pull the parchment paper back and have a look at it. This is really about exactly the thickness that we want. Maybe 1/10 of an inch, something like that. And next, I'm going to just cut out my cookies using a regular band for a mason jar. You use whatever cookie cutter you like, of course. And then we just want to remove those to a baking sheet covered with parchment paper again. With the excess, don't throw it out. We're going to roll it out again. I'm going to push it all together. And if I push it all together here, and if it's a little too soft, I can stick it back in the refrigerator for 5 minutes or so, and it'll be perfect to roll out again. Of course, we always have the other half in there that we can start working with now too. Here, we'll get these on the tray, get these in the oven, and while they're baking for 12 minutes, and in your oven it might take 11 minutes, it might take 14 minutes, keep an eye on them. 12 minutes is all it takes in my oven, and while they're baking, I'm going to roll out the rest of the dough. There's the timer. I'm going to go grab those. Here we go. You'll see they're just beautiful. I'm going to get these onto a wire rack to cool quickly. We're going to let them cool for about an hour before we move on to the next step. It's been about an hour and a half since I took the cookies out of the oven, and they're nice and cool and crisp. I got 26 cookies out of this batch. I think that's pretty good. Of course, you can eat them just like this. They're absolutely delicious, but I think as a keto snack, it's really great to add some lovely fat to them. And here I've got 8 ounces of sugar-free chocolate that I've chopped up and melted over a simple double boiler. And that's all it is. And I'm just going to coat the cookies in it really easily. I've got 2 forks here, and I think that really is the easiest way to go. I like to pick them up like this, let the excess drip off, and then there's always a little more that you need to let go here. So I put them on a nice wire rack and let them drain like that. And then I stick them in the refrigerator for about a half an hour so that the chocolate can set. After that, you can keep them at room temperature and they'll still be nice and firm, and the cookie will still be crispy. Listen, before you go, don't forget to like, share, comment, and especially subscribe to my channel. Helps my channel grow, helps you find my videos, especially if you click on that notifications bell. Thanks so much for joining us here today at Tim Talks Cooking, huh? We'll catch you next time.